What's up, Frank? What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Sleuth Intuition Live. And I've been dwelling on this thought for some time now. Has the Delphi case gone cold? I, in fact, believe that it has. And that means that we need to work harder than we ever have if we care about this case and the awareness that we think we're bringing to the case. But as of right now, it is my opinion that we are dealing with a cold case. And if you can change my mind, please do so now. Feel free to leave your opinions in the comment section or give me a call. What's up, Purdue? Willow? Vanessa? Hey, what's up, Fig? Jill. What's up, Lakeside? What's up, Chopper? Purdue says, I think it's very cold. If they had any evidence, there would have been an arrest. I agree. And I mean, what's up with the DNA? Like, we have our best suspects over here, Kegan Kline, and anybody associated with him, through the Anthony shots, but they've all checked their DNA. It's good to see you, man. What's up, Derek? I hope you're still going to join me on Tuesday, if possible. Frank Meister says, considering and according to the National Institute of Justice, it is considered a cold case by definition. Yep, digital. Digital put here in the comments, Fig, need input. Miss your point of view. Yes, his input is extremely respected. And when I have a tough question, I definitely run it by him as well. Jacqueline says, I feel that there are a lot of people in general who are still trying to work on the case and find out if they can solve it or if it can be solved. Looks like we do have somebody calling in. Give me one moment.
Yo, yo.
Fig, is that you?
It's me. Could you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Thought I'd call in for a few minutes before I get yelled at that breakfast is ready, the wife's cooking. So thought I'd say hi.
Well, I'm glad we caught you at just the right time.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
The cold case thing. Yeah.
What a tough thing to talk about, huh? For all the people that care about this case, but it might be time to start having that conversation.
Yeah, I've still been, following up on things and making some contacts and really getting closer with law enforcement down there. And yeah, not a whole lot of new information. There's maybe some leads. They're still monitoring stuff, but it's pretty grim. And I'm actually making a video. It's long, but they want to be held accountable, law enforcement, and I'm just going to come at it from a consulting perspective. I go into businesses, they ask, "Hey, what are we doing wrong? Tell us, help us
Hmm.
out here." So I'm taking the same approach, but I don't have a whole bunch of inside information or anything. So it's just from the same information that we all have. But the results to measure if it's cold or not is 5.5 years, zero arrest. I mean, that's the data. That's the most important data. There's been no arrest.
And that's the definition of a cold case.
Right. And when there's no resources or leads anymore, so they could argue and say, well, we're still getting some tips in here. We're still monitoring things. So yeah, technically, okay, it's not
Well, what do you mean
cool.
tips? What do you say to all these people that are convinced that Kegan Kline and Tony Kline are our people?
So for the public, I think that's bad to pass that along that we think that it's them, even if we really do think that it's them, because I
Hmm.
think it closes down conversation too, and it makes people stop looking like, oh, okay, well, they already
Stops
know who it
tips,
is.
right?
Stops tips. That's straight from law enforcement. It does that when we claim that, oh yeah, it's so and so, it is this person. Well, then people like, all right, yeah, not going to tip it in anymore. And another thing that happens when if someone who might be on the verge of tipping it in, like say a person who knows actually bridge guy, and then they hear, oh, well, they arrested someone else for it. So yeah, maybe it wasn't my uncle or my brother or my son. Maybe it wasn't them. They already have
Yeah,
it
they're
figured out. So
relieved. They're
they're
super
relieved.
relieved. They're like, "Oh my god, I thought it was him. Like it was definitely him." And now it's this Ron Logan guy.
Right. So I urge content creators, and I'm going to kind of ask in the video is even if you have a hunch, just pretend you don't know who it is. Tip all that stuff in
Hmm.
and pretend you don't know it's them, or make a case and always be humble because law enforcement doesn't 100% know who it is. So for
And
someone who
regardless of what you do, tip it in
oh yeah,
first.
first thing.
Yes.
So I'll say, I've been working with someone behind the scenes and they tipped in someone
Hmm.
a few weeks ago and there was a response.
Okay.
So they're still checking tip lines. They just wanted more information on this person. Um, it was someone who we thought might have been on the trails that day, but weren't sure. And I don't think there's any follow ups after that. There's like, could you give us more information about this person? And then we sent more information and then haven't heard anything back. So it's they're following up on leads, but that's kind of it shows that they're not sure who did this. I'm convinced they're not sure one way or another who committed this crime.
Yeah, I'm almost 100% sure. Well, it's either that they're not sure or they haven't um, provided any information pointing to somebody that they actually might suspect. They haven't allowed that information to leak. It's either that, it's extremely
Right.
close, maybe a group of 10 investigators, including a few FBI agents, something along
Hmm.
those lines, or they have absolutely no clue and the DNA is worthless.
Right. It might only be able to rule people out, which I do think if they have DNA, I do think it ruled Kagan out. I don't think he's bridge guy. This is just my opinion, but I'm pretty convinced law enforcement thinks he's connected somehow.
Well, what if he is bridge guy and the DNA is just no good?
That could be true. Um, I think there's a few reasons why they don't think it was him necessarily.
Mhm.
I mean, if they did find hair samples in the Ron Logan search affidavit, and then they did hair testing, uh, I think he has an alibi because he was looking up his type of CSAM. It wasn't just
Mhm.
that a phone was on Country Club Road. They said, he was looking at certain type, and they know his MO in that regards. And there's a few things, but again, even if
And
I
the
did
other
think it was
person,
him,
and
oh,
the other
what's
person, and the other person using the Anthony shots, that's all circumstantial and hypothetical
right,
information, and they weren't under oath. So, and that could have been
right.
Kegan. Kegan seems to get into these characters quite well to get what he
Hmm.
wants. So,
Yeah, and another piece, the good old sketches, but I kind of did I used a timeline that Yellow Jacket made, and I kind of made a visual for it. I'll send it to you. But it shows in 2017 they thought it was Old Bridge guy. 2018 they didn't know they didn't have any sketches up, not at the 1 year.
mhm.
They're just like, look at the video. 2019 it was all about young guy sketch. Then in 2020 I finally found this where it was Riley who said, Sergeant Riley, that yeah, we think it could be, there's a possibility that it's two people. So in 2020, there was that statement that it could be two people, and then they brought back the Old Bridge guy sketch. So from 2020 to present day, both have been put in the spotlight by ISP, saying it's a
Wow.
combination of the two. So in 2019, they said it's two separate people, and that statement is still up on the ISP bulletin. So it's how do you go from saying it's two different people and to disregard the old guy sketch? Well, now 2020, it's present not on not on like the FBI website or ISP, but when ISP's official website, but when they talk, Doug Carter 2022,
Mhm.
it's a combination of the two. Everything in 2021, there's a show on Amazon Prime that shows them say, nope, don't disregard either one. It's Perrine was saying that both are important. So now we're supposed to believe that both are important.
And I agree with that because I don't think they know.
They just don't. They don't know if it's one or two people. Is what I think.
Yeah, or maybe they don't know it's one or the other.
Right.
Because
And I, mhm.
in the Ron Logan affidavit, they state the only reason they think that the bridge guy is even involved is because he hasn't come forward or been identified. That's it.
Right. Yeah. It hasn't been identified. So that shows they haven't identified him yet, and they
That's
don't know which
paper
one.
thin.
And then a little inside information. My understanding is FBI thinks it's young guy sketch. Carroll County ISP thinks it's old guy sketch. That's why there's so much confusion
Mm,
with it.
there's conflict.
There's conflict, and which is common. So, and I think why that the sketch came out, the 2019 is 2018. They started working with GPI. They did a profile. 2019 is basically that press conference as a result of the profile. They they profiled the guy between 25 and 35, and that young guy sketch was the only sketch that resembled someone who looked between the ages of 25, 35. So they went with that sketch. All the other sketches looked above 35 years old. So I think it's that simple is why they chose young guy sketch based off the behaviors of the crime scene.
Okay. So they're just doing basic profiling by the book. They have no clue. They're just using the evidence to try to predict who they're looking for.
Correct. And then that's why they brought it back, the old bridge guy sketch. After about 7 months, for 7 months they disregarded it. Then about after 7 months, they showed both. And sorry, I'm not looking at chat. So whoever's saying hi. I'll try to see.
Yeah, there's a bunch of questions for you. Let me go back up to this good one. Um, Purdue said, Fig, don't you think from a consulting point of view, law enforcement, like other disciplines, need to have mock drills to practice of what to do in searches and securing crime scenes? I agree with this because they screwed up.
Yes. Yeah, they did. And something unique to this one, which I don't know exactly why they did this, but when they had the crime scene techs on scene, they made them all not talk to each other. They kind of had them going separately. They didn't want them to communicate with each other, which is kind of the first I've heard of something like this. So
Hmm.
I need to learn more as to why. But 100%, they should be doing mocks and trials and seeing who does what. I think what confused a lot of it was all the searchers and all the footprints, where because normally you could kind of tell if there's two people. It's pretty
Hmm.
absolute. Footprints is one of the ways, but I think with all the searchers and everything going on that night, the night before they found the girls, that it really just messed things up.
Well, what about the protocol overall? I mean, right when they were missing and it started getting dark, there should have been something that went into place, right? Like, yeah, it could have been, them maybe fell asleep, maybe they got high at a friend's house and, they were afraid or they wanted to lay low until they sobered up or they were drinking. But what if they were kidnapped or murdered or something? Should there be a protocol? They should be expecting the worst almost instead of assuming, the simplest outcome.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough. I know they haven't had a murder there in 30 years prior in Delphi.
2020,
So,
right?
right. Yeah. Yeah. Hindsight.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely when there's something like that, I mean, I guess it depends where you live. And in certain places where I lived, it would, like, if your kid was missing, they wouldn't even give you attention until 24 hours. They're like, right, how depending how busy they are and stuff. But it seemed like they moved relatively fast comparative
Mhm.
to kind of some of the other states and counties. Um, but yeah, I guess to have a training to get all those other people trained, all the searchers and stuff. But they need to, like, hey, everyone start here. This is what we're gonna do. But then some people are like, Mike, Patty, those are my girl. I'm gonna be out here all night. You're not gonna tell me I can't look for
But
my
he went
girls
home.
anymore.
But Mike Patty went
Right.
home.
Yeah. Eventually, but he was there. If they called it off at midnight, he was there for, I don't know, until 2 or 3 a.m. and then he finally.
No, he left. He left at midnight, came back
Okay.
at 3 a.m.
Well, some people were out there saying we're still going to look for him. I don't know who
Yeah, it
exactly.
was packed. There was a lot of people out there. News media showed up at 3 a.m. and they were filming all kinds of people walking through there, coming out of the police station
Hmm.
or the fire station. Yeah, so there was at least 50 people. And then right at about real early in the morning is when Mike Patty showed up. And he kind of was the one that organized everything and was like, we're going to do this, let's do that, kind of took charge.
Hmm.
But um, what do you think about certain people in the search party? Do you think that's something? You think that's like something that a killer would do? Like, I'm going to come and join the search party and
All
try
right.
to, um, corrupt corrupt the scene. I mean, is that really something killers do?
So, like, watching movies and stuff, we think that, but it depends. Like a killer type who has psychosis issues, and yeah, they might involve themselves. But I think a lot of people would also just escape, like leave, like they don't want to be anywhere around there. But it takes
Seems
a certain
smarter,
type of
right?
person, right? Now, if this is someone who is sicker, I mean, you're sick killing kids, obviously, but then there's different degrees of sickness and mental illness where, yeah, they might try and hide in plain sight. So they might have been at the search party, and that's one theory that I had with the young guy sketch looking so different. Is if someone noticed behaviors during the search party of someone who was like, if it is one person who was looking, kind of raggedy earlier, and
Well,
then now they're all.
what do you think about the whole Pat Brown thing and him like being there early and finding the girls and then his vehicle being kind of blocked in there by all these law enforcement? I mean, is that suspicious or is that just like good job, Pat Brown, for, you know, living back there and knowing better and saying, hey, you guys aren't checking in these certain areas. I'm going to take the initiative. I think they might even be located back
Mhm.
here.
100% it's suspicious. They look at whoever's found the bodies, they always get looked at
Yeah, it's
as
because it's
well.
kind of like they just want to get that part past it. They're like, we want you
Right,
guys to stop suffering. I want you to know where the bodies are. Now get to trying to catch me so I can stop, worrying about the stuff that I'm already guilty about. I want that part
right,
that I want that chapter to be closed. I want you to get
right,
to the chapter where you're trying to catch me. The uncomfortable
right,
stuff is the early stuff you think, right?
right.
Okay.
So yeah, they get whoever finds bodies usually gets looked into pretty hard, and that's just it. Back to the cold case thing. It's like all these people that we know of, we assume that they gave DNA. So, like you said, maybe they have bad DNA.
Yeah, friends. Remember the whole party house scenario? They were hanging out. What about all those people that gave DNA? The young people. Now, aren't they still? They should be back on the radar.
Hmm. Yeah, and usually why they do DNA things like that. So even if they don't have DNA, but it's to get behavior reactions. Someone saying, no, 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 I'm not going to give my DNA. Then you go on a list. So you don't have, they'll take volunteers for people who, already aren't in prison and stuff, but just
Mm-hmm.
when they're actually in the community, they do that to see how they react to the question as well. So the ones who say, nope, I don't want DNA, they'll write your name down on a separate list and monitor you and kind of keep an eye on you.
Yeah, but you got to be careful because there's people, certain people. I know me at one point, like right now, I'd happily give my DNA, but I know that
Right.
at one point in my life, I'd be like, I ain't giving my DNA to
Right.
nobody, like all paranoid,
Right.
And that's how
100%.
Michael. That's how Michael Catt was. He was like, I'm not. They asked him for his DNA, and he's like, I'm not giving my DNA.
Right. It doesn't mean you're guilty, but there's probably going to be 500 people like that. And then so it just helps narrow it down. So out of
It
those
really
500
would.
people who are like that, maybe one of them. Yeah, and I don't think people have to give their DNA, but that's a whole
Mhm.
nother discussion.
But a killer's not gonna just willingly give
Typically.
up his. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So we got September coming up. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think? Are we going to see any changes, or is this going to be disappointment? Should we be hopeful?
I don't think we should be hopeful. They know, or I believe that law enforcement thinks Kegan Kline knows more than he's saying, which is nothing. But that's just it. They can't put him there. They don't have any evidence to show that he was there. So it's just right with trials getting pushed back a lot. My cousin was murdered 2018. His killer's trial is barely going to start in 2020 in September, the same time. It's been pushed back so many times. So having trials being pushed back is natural,
Okay.
especially during COVID. It's a part of it. So it's not because they're saying anything special. What's
It's
likely
more of a
happening,
scheduling, like a scheduling conflict.
yeah, and that's what the defense attorneys do. They want more time. They do things to try to buy more time. Maybe the prosecutor's doing that, but it's I don't see any good signs of it because his charges, he's probably going to plead guilty if he wants time reduced. That's probably the discussions that are going on. Like, hey, if you plead
Hmm.
guilty to these and you don't waste all this time in court and all the taxpayer money, then we'll give you a reduced sentence.
Traumatize all these victims.
Right. Put them through it. So
Hmm.
that's probably, and I don't know for a fact, I'm just using my best judgment here. So,
Let's see here. So the DNA may be there to either include or exclude you from a case, or none of the above, right?
right. My understanding is they have 6 markers on the DNA.
Okay.
And that's not enough to do like the familiar DNA. I have to look more into that, but they could potentially, my understanding is, rule people out.
And that's gender. I wonder if that provides gender and race.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, well, I just wanted to say hi and talk a little bit about this because I think it's an important topic about the cold case and that yeah, we need more tips. We need things to make it uncold. We need to urge people who know something to come forward that law enforcement does not know who did this, so they still need
Hmm.
help. So I think that's great.
Well, that's one thing I'm going to go over in today's live stream is I pulled some videos, some news clips. First, kind of like the early on investigation, the first year, quick reports on the 2019 presser, and then kind of when the not when the transcript came out for Kegan Kline, but first when the Anthony shots and he was tied to it, Doug Carter commenting on him, and then out of nowhere, here comes the Ron Logan
Hmm.
information that's been there the entire time, and it's just as convincing as the Kegan Kline information.
Hmm. Well, have a good rest of your day, sir. And yeah, it's nice chatting with you, and we'll be in contact. And hi
Mhm.
to everyone in the chat. I'll be in the chat as I'm eating my breakfast. I'm getting yelled at, so I gotta go.
Hey, yeah, thanks for calling in and blessing us
All right.
with your information and your insight. Take care, Fig.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Bye. Well, that was a good surprise. Little visit by Fig and his information. He is a busy guy. He has sources. He's just overall just a smart guy. So we appreciate you, Fig, providing that insight on today's topic. The cold case. Has the Delphi double homicide gone cold? Which I believe that it has. See if we can catch up on some of the chat here. Miss Persevere, how are you? I don't know if Indiana can use that DNA. I'm not sure. Anna Lisette, yeah. I wonder if you can give stipulations on that. That seems to be the way to do it. Social media wasn't involved. Well, I don't know if they said that or they just didn't tell us, or if people like Gray Hughes were listening to the family and just misled a lot of people. That's what I'm saying. You got to keep an open mind. 100% keep an open mind. We want this case solved so bad that anything they feed us, we're swallowing it like a pit bull, would swallow a rib bone. They don't even chew it. Deep throat. You just swallow it, you know. No critical thinking, no nothing. Just think about it. If it's kind of scary, like people would convict these people with the information that we have now, or they would try to convince others not to keep helping with the case. Like this thing's not solved. This is just what we've been able to gather and, certain things that have come to light, you know. So I'm going to share a couple news clips that I have with you. They're going to kind of take us down the path of information that's been providing, kind of taking us, pulling us in one direction and then yanking us back in the opposite. Only making me think further that this is a cold case, which I'm convinced at this point that it is. And if anything, needs more attention than ever. Hey, Allie with the $5 super chat. I love it when you guys work together. Yeah, Fig is a great person. I feel comfortable reaching out to him at any point. He is very professional, very respectful, and I appreciate talking with him. Indeed. All right, let's see what we missed here. Yeah, the geocaching is very much in play. Very much. Just think about it. If the killer has nothing to do with Anthony Shots, nothing to do with Ron Logan, nothing to do with Pat Brown, nothing to do with Delphi, he's literally sitting back and watching all of this and saying, man, I am so confident I may just go out and do it again. That's the part that scares me, honestly. Look at what's happened to Delphi. Look what's happened to these families. Courtney Robb says, what's the consensus on why Kegan wasn't arrested earlier? I really don't know. The Hollywood movie maker in my brain says it's to track them. The FBI was trying to find the bridge guy killer and using surveillance. But the fact is, it could be as simple as them just being too lazy. I really don't know. Yeah, 6 markers is better than nothing. Hopefully it's helping. It seems like it helped with Daniel Nations, whatever that's worth. So I'm wondering if it's only able to provide like the race and the sex of a person. Lee Cordell says they have all the time in the world with Kline. He's not getting out. There's no way a prosecutor would charge him with anything to do with the murders without complete certainty. Yeah. I mean, what's the point? What's the rush? Other than justice, you know? And I think it might be some legal ramifications. If you have knowledge that you plan to charge somebody, there might be something saying that you have to do so. I'm not sure. Purdue says, Fig, do you think law enforcement will release any additional information? Oh, man, they need to release that full video. What's up, Frank? Yeah, me too, Willow. His approach is admirable, at least. Yeah, the DNA is a very troubling topic. Somehow they're using it, and somehow they're not able to use it in some cases. So what Fig said is a perfect explanation to why that is. You know, and we've discussed that before with other creators of that being the case. All right, so let's jump into a few of these news clips, and then we will take some more calls and hang out and chat. Like I said, today's topic is the Delphi case has gone cold. Now, if you can convince me otherwise, I would love to hear what you have to say. Go ahead and type it in the chat, or go ahead and reach out, hit the link that's at the top, and don't forget about the survey or the poll.
People in Delphi are very, very concerned this evening.
Yeah, you can't blame them. It's a small town where most people know everyone, and they also want justice for Libby and Abby. Our team coverage continues now with Eyewitness News reporter Kevin Rader and the town's reaction to today's news conference. Kevin?
Yeah, the first thing you notice when you pull into Delphi these days are all the ribbons that are up in remembrance of the two girls. The first thing you think of after a horrendous crime like this is everyone in town is of like mind. They want to see this resolved. But the first thing they do after a horrendous crime like this is hold their children close. Life in Delphi is currently in limbo. They're going on with their day-to-day lives, but still very much focusing on the two girls who lost theirs. Does this worry you at all?
It does. I have kids. I have 4 daughters and a son, and it just doesn't feel safe anymore.
What are you telling them?
Having them be alert to their surroundings and let people know where they are, and to not walk alone. My daughter is at IU, and I asked her to take the bus.
It's a parent's worst nightmare, a town's heartbreak. And if you think it's just the mothers having a hard time with all of this, think again.
I don't even want to think about the danger they were in.
I have a 12-year-old daughter. I can imagine losing her would be horrible.
How are you treating her now differently about where she goes, what she does?
Well, I hug her hard every time I see her, you know, and tell her I make sure she knows I love her. And, you know, I'd never want to lose her.
Reaction tonight at 6. We'll have reaction to the news conference today, but also from one person who says she was a friend of one of the two victims. That's coming up tonight at 6. John?
All right, we'll look forward to that. Thank you. Kevin Rader in Delphi tonight. Now, we've had several people...
6. Never before seen video and audio now in the public's hands. All in hopes of catching this man, the killer of 2 Delphi daughters. And investigators believe he is no stranger.
We likely have interviewed you or someone close to you.
He could be from Delphi. He could work nearby. And he definitely believes he got away with it.
To the killer who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight.
They're hunting him, and they're committed to seeing this case through. Live RTV 16 coverage from the Heartland starts right now. And thank you for being here with us. I'm Amanda Starantino. New recordings and audio tonight taken from the phone of one of the Delphi girls whose lives were cut short. New evidence and how this could turn and change the investigation. RTV6 has live team coverage tonight with Call 6 Investigates Rafael Sanchez and Paris Lubell. Rafael, talk to us. What are we learning today?
Amanda, good evening. A series of new details released today that police are really hoping will lead to that arrest and maybe even a trial right there in the building behind me, the Carroll County Courthouse.
We also believe this person is from Delphi, currently or has previously lived here.
That shit breaks my heart right there. I did tear up a little bit when I was taking this video.
Carrie Timmons did not need to say a word for the world to be reminded of the deep loss being felt by the families of Libby German and Abby Williams. Raw emotions as new details became public more than 2 years after the girls were killed. A new sketch of the prime suspect described as an 18 to 40-year-old man who may live, work, or visit in Delphi. For the first time, moving video of the suspect on the Monon High Bridge was released. This video that Libby German secretly recorded when the suspect approached her and Abby on the bridge back on February the 13th, 2017. State police also shared a bit more of the audio from that video. In the past, we've heard the 3 words, "down the hill." Now listen closely to the new release.
Down the hill, guys. Down the hill, guys. Down the hill.
That previous audio recording composed of 3 words, "down the hill." The new recording adds an extra word, "guys down the hill." Police are hoping that all of this new information put together will give the public here in Carroll County and around the world more information that may lead to a possible arrest and, of course, the prime suspect to be behind bars.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that full video should have been released at the beginning. You have a double homicide and you need this person caught immediately. You know, what is it, the first 48? You need all that information out there while it's still fresh. Full audio, full video. Why they didn't release that, there's absolutely no explanation for that.
Investigates Paris Lubell joins me here in Delphi. You've been talking to a lot of the folks here in the town of 3,000. They're beginning now to sort of see how this information will impact them. What are they telling you, and how do they plan to use the information?
Rafael, for 2.5 years, investigators have released very little information on this case, but that all changed today. And there were about 100 people that were there at the press conference from the community, and there was some shock and some frustration, but there's also some now new renewed hope. It came as a shock to everyone.
It's been 2.5 years. Why did they sit on this?
Frustration from the community after state police releasing significant new details on the investigation for the very first time.
You know, it's been a witch hunt around here. We all want justice.
Investigators releasing a clip of video, a clip of audio, but the biggest reaction, an audible gasp from the audience, came from the release of this new sketch.
We've all been looking for the wrong man for 2.5 years.
Police now saying this new sketch is the primary sketch of the suspect on the bridge.
To see the sketch we've been seeing and to see this now, it's like, you know, like it's completely different.
They just handed me this picture. I was surprised. The picture shows him to be much younger.
Investigators say they believe this man is between 18 and 40 years old and could appear younger than he actually is. Police also now saying they believe the man is from Delphi, is familiar with the area, or maybe works in the area.
As a Delphi citizen, I've always felt that way.
It could be someone around here.
I always thought he would be from Delphi.
Delphi has changed. You know, how
I agree, Courtney.
Instead of greeting your neighbor.
Courtney says it's like they thought the video was their ace in the hole. Wonder how the investigation would look if they didn't have that video. Yeah, I wonder if that video was more misleading than anything. Because the more I look into that video and the images that I see, it's a puzzle. You see young, you see old, you see middle aged. It's just very strange, very strange. But yeah, it could have hurt more than helped.
You know, with a handshake and a smile at the grocery store, now you look at everybody with suspicion.
But with all the frustration, there's also new hope.
I think they will. I hope so. I know I'm from Kokomo, and we constantly keep our eye open.
I hope we get closure, yes. Soon.
Back live here in Delphi, State Police were not taking any questions from the media today. So one of the many questions that people have on Facebook and throughout our social media pages on RTV6 is they want to know why today, why now all of this information?
Raphael, well, investigators have been keeping a lot of the information in this case close to the vest. Now, we've been talking to our sources. They say they've reached a point now in the investigation that they thought it was time to release this, and that is why they're doing it today.
The Coastal Investigates, Paris LaBelle, thank you so much. Today, State Police Superintendent Doug Carter did have a message for the family. It was a raw emotion for him as he was not only talking about the killer at one point, but then he turned to his left and addressed the family of both Abby and Libby. This is what he had to say.
I just want the family to know that when I take my
See-Through says, I believe without the video, we would not be talking about this case. I agree with that. That's one of the things that was compelling to me for sure, and that attracted me to this case 100%. The audio and the video.
last breath on this earth, I'll be thinking of them. There's going to be a tremendous amount of questions. I know that. I know that. Never in my career have I stood in front of something like this. Please be patient with us, please. We're just beginning. We are just now beginning. And I can tell you on behalf of the sheriff and the police chief, so many other partners that have stood with us over this period of time, that we will not stop.
A message today from State Police Superintendent Doug Carter to the family and all in that room. But we do have many questions for him and the families. They have asked us not to ask questions for another 2 weeks. So for the next 2 weeks, you will not hear any other commentary from law enforcement or from the families of Abby and Libby. We're live tonight in Delphi. Rafael Sanchez, RTV6.
Rafael, thank you. And investigators say.
Yes, Fig, please send that to me. I would love to take a look. Yeah, I can spend a few hours looking at that audio for sure.
Jail on those unrelated charges. And now he's talking on camera for the first time, acknowledging the Delphi investigation in a jailhouse interview with CNN.
Fig says first half of the video is older, then he morphs into a younger man. Very strange. Well, I found a clip or a frame where it almost appears that his hand is in the frame up near his face. So I'm wondering if he's wearing a mask and at one point he pulls it up. It's just a thought, nothing that I can find that backs it up in a compelling fashion, but those are some of the things that I've seen.
Why do you think investigators are putting so much focus on you right now?
I have not a clue. I think it's because they said that I was the last person.
Sorry, I'm having some issues here. Let me get back to this one
Jail
here.
on those unrelated charges. And now he's talking on camera for the first time, acknowledging the Delphi investigation in a jailhouse interview with CNN.
Why do you think investigators are putting so much focus on you right now?
I have not a clue. I think it's because they said I was the last person to talk to her, is what they've told me.
And then
Kline says investigators haven't threatened any charges against him for Abby and Libby's murders. And while he's admitted to cheating, or rather creating the Anthony Shots profile to get inappropriate pictures, he says that's where the crime ends.
Were you ever trying to meet these girls in real life that you were talking
No.
to?
No, never.
Did you have anything to do with the murders of Abby or Libby?
Not at all. And I've gave up my DNA, a hair follicle test. I've done everything they wanted me to.
We reached out to state police tonight to ask if they've collected DNA samples from Kline and if Kline's Anthony Shots profile was the last to talk to Libby before the murders. They say they can't confirm either statement. As we wrap up tonight's big story, remember the tip email address for the Delphi murders. It's still active. Even years later, any piece of information you can share could be the key to cracking this case. We also have this address posted on WTHR.com.
Yeah, Sterling, you bring up a good point. That's the second time I've seen it mentioned in the comments. Sterling Cox says they can't admit it's cold because then you open yourself up to FOI requests, which will show how mad law enforcement messed up or how bad. Yeah, so apparently somebody's going to come in there and take inventory of how bad they screwed up, you know?
Into the Delphi investigation. The state's top law enforcer believes the case could be solved within 3 years or much sooner. Monday will mark 5 years since the bodies of Abby Williams and Libby German were found near the Old Monon High Bridge on Valentine's Day 2017. Now, since that moment, police have received thousands of tips involving the case. Despite a cell phone video and sketch, this case remains unsolved. State Police Superintendent Doug Carter, he sat down with me yesterday afternoon and for the first time expressed a possible timeline of when he believes this case could likely come to an end.
I believe that while I'm the superintendent of state police, we'll identify this individual.
That's within 2 years, sir.
3.
3 years. 3 years.
2 years and 11 months.
They didn't want to push you out.
Yeah.
So you think within 3 years something will develop?
It could be today.
It could be today.
It could be tomorrow. But I can say that we're continuing to move in a very positive direction. I was asked earlier, what would you say to Abby and Libby if you saw them today? And I would just simply say, I'm sorry, but I hope you're proud of us for what we've tried to do. And I believe that one day I'll be able to do that.
Now, the last major development in this ongoing case came back this past December, as you may recall. State police asked people who use Snapchat and Instagram to provide information about a young man using a fake account on social media to lure young girls. That appeal was made in a state police video. Now, the man at the center of the fake account, he's in custody, but he has not been named as a suspect or a person of interest directly in the Delphi case. I was hoping to get more details on that, but this is all the superintendent would say.
It generated a tremendous amount of interest. And the leads that we've received have been very helpful. But that's as far as I can go with that particular issue.
The superintendent tells me that this is not a cold case because he tells me no one has given up on the investigation. All new in our next half hour, why and when state police may need to assign 80 to 100 people to this case. Plus, Good Morning America will have more on the Delphi investigation coming up at 7:30 right here on WRTV. And as a reminder, you can find all of our reporting on Delphi on our website, WRTV.com/Delphi.
Discovery obtained by IT aides surrounding the Delphi murders. It's a story that we broke for you today on WishTV.com.
It's one that a lot of people are talking about. We have new details about evidence police might have in the deaths of Abby Williams and Libby German. And it comes from a police interview with Kegan Kline, the man now in jail, accused of creating a fake social media account to get sexual pictures and videos of underage girls. Our teammates Demi Johnson has been on this case since day one. She joins us now with more. Demi.
Hey, Phil, yeah, this transcript is 194 pages long. It was given to us by the founders of the Murder Sheet podcast, who have been following the case and obtained the court documents. A source with the Indiana State Police has confirmed to me the interview transcript is authentic. In it, Kegan Kline talks about his conversations with Libby German through the Anthony Shots account. And for the first time, we see words from state police about whether they believe Kline was involved in Abby and Libby's murders. This transcript goes word by word through the interview with Kegan Kline, a state police investigator and a sheriff's deputy. It was in August 2020 as police were arresting Kline on more than 30 child porn-related charges connected to the Anthony Shots social media account. I-Team 8 first reported in December of last year that Kline was connected to the account.
Police are focusing on a fake social media account.
And News 8 has learned that same account is tied to a child porn case here in Indiana.
And that investigators in the Delphi murders were aware of it in the days immediately after the deaths of Libby German and Abby Williams. During the interview, Kline admits using the account to get sexual photos and videos of underage girls. He also admits having contact with Libby German. You admitted that you talked to her, the investigator says, for a few hours at a sleepover, and then you blocked her because she was annoying. You remember that. Kline responds saying, "You're right. Yeah." But investigators believe that's not all. When Kline denied exchanging photos and messages with German, a state police detective says, "I'm telling you, it's fact. You did, okay? Because the Anthony Shots persona, that the fake account you admitted to making, communicated with Liberty German on Snapchat and Instagram, and that it was not just for a couple of hours." They also tell Kline another witness was messaging with Anthony Shots, who says Shots admitted he was supposed to meet Libby, but she didn't show up. The interview also gives the first public indication that two people may have been using the Anthony Shots account. As detectives detail February 13th, 2017, the day Abby and Libby went missing, investigators tell Kline, 8 o'clock in the morning at your house where you and your dad lived, two separate devices. See the numbers here, how they're the same? Log in, log out. One device, log in, log out, all within minutes of each other to the same Anthony Shots Snapchat account. The detective also tells Kline, regardless of what you say, there are two different authors of those messages. They're not both you. They're both your devices, but the phrasing is different. It changes. It's not the same person. So we know we have multiple logins with Snapchat. We have two different people using Kick Messenger talking to people from your residence. Kline denied knowing who else might have accessed the account. During the interview, Kline twice references a polygraph test he was given in the Delphi murder investigation, and both times indicates police told him he failed the test. And just before the interview ends, the detective reminds Kline that when he was asked if he knows who killed Libby and Abby, you said no both times in your polygraph. And guess what? That was deception. Now, several times throughout the interview, Kline denies killing Abby and Libby. We want to be clear, Kline has not been charged in their murders. In fact, no one has been arrested in the case. It's also important to note that neither nor Kline were under oath during this interview, and law enforcement is allowed to exaggerate facts and evidence during questioning.
So I found that interesting. None of them were under oath. So everything could be bullshit that we were listening to. So them even saying that he failed the lie detector test could be a lie.
Kline is due back in court on April 14th. He faces 30 charges, including child porn and child solicitation.
Stunning to see that transcript. Demi, you've been on this story since the first day, basically, okay? So you talked with police, Kline's family, or Kline's attorney, and the family of the girls about this transcript. What did they tell you?
So Abby's mom did not want to comment.
Jim says, it's obvious too many agencies were involved and not coordinated. I hope I'm wrong, but I worked for the government. I think so as well. I don't think they're communicating. State, local, federal, I don't think they're communicating as well as they should be.
And I also tried to reach Libby's family, but they're on vacation right now and they weren't available for an interview. So I asked state police if there was any reason we should not release this interview. They didn't give us one, and Kline's attorney did not respond to our request.
Wow. Tammy, you've been staying on top.
Information about the murder of 2 young teenagers in Delphi and about a man investigators thought might be responsible for the crime.
The bodies of Abby Williams and Libby German were found 5 years ago, and their murders still remain unsolved tonight. Today, 13 investigators obtained a search warrant that's a request related to this investigation.
Senior investigative reporter Bob Siegel says the document sheds new light on the murders.
A month after Abby and Libby were murdered, an FBI special agent asked a judge to authorize a search warrant of the massive property where the bodies were found. The property was owned by Ronald Logan, and 13 News was there when officers served Logan a search warrant in March of 2017. The FBI got permission to search the entire property, including Logan's home, garage, his pickup truck, computers, and cell phones. Now we know exactly why the judge granted the warrant. In her request, the FBI agent wrote, "I believe there is probable cause to believe that Ronald Logan has committed the crime of murder, and evidence of that could be found on Ronald Logan's property." The special agent then went on to give plenty of information about why she believed Logan was responsible. We'll get to that in a moment, but first, the warrant request has new information about the crime scene that has not been released before. The FBI agent confirmed one of the victims was missing an article of clothing. There was no visible signs of a struggle or fight. At the crime scene, investigators recovered fibers and unidentified hairs. And the agent wrote, it also appeared the girls' bodies were moved and staged by whoever committed the murder. Now, as far as the FBI's interest in Logan, first, you might remember this chilling video that was recovered from Libby's cell phone. State police believe it shows the murder suspect telling the girls to go down the hill. State police released those few seconds of video in the hopes that the public might help identify the killer. In her warrant request, the FBI agent confirmed the video clip is actually 43 seconds long. And she said Logan's physical build is consistent with that of the male suspect videotaped by Libby on the Monon High Bridge Trail. Logan's voice is not inconsistent with that of the person in the video. The FBI agent also said Logan asked a relative to create a fake alibi for him for the afternoon the girls were reported missing. She also said cell phone tower data showed Logan's cell phone was in the area where the girls went missing the afternoon they disappeared. And later that night, cell phone tower data showed Logan's phone in proximity to where Libby and Abby's bodies were eventually found. Investigators also interviewed 2 women who had been in a relationship with Logan, and both reported that he was physically abusive. One told investigators Logan threatened her and said he could kill her and no one would find her body. Now, Ron Logan died in 2020. It's important to note he was never formally named a suspect or charged in the murders. This search warrant was first reported by the Murder Sheet podcast, and they shared the document with 13 News. If you'd like to read the search warrant, we have it posted right now at WTHR.com.
Well, we're going to start closing it out. We'll hang out in the chat for another 5-10 minutes. But please, if you're watching this or if you're listening live, please leave anything in the comments section and we'll try to work this out. Leave your opinion on why you think it is cold, why it's not, why certain evidence is still good evidence and leading in the right direction, or vice versa. Sharing material. Yeah, stay away. Don't go anywhere near that person. They can't. That's why they didn't pinpoint it. And the affidavit, if he was next to the bodies, they would have said they would have pinpointed it right next to where the bodies were found. But instead, they used all this weird terminology, you know, left it very vague, open to interpretation. Yeah, my only thing is if the girls did run across the creek and they ran up that steep embankment, the person who chased them almost would have to be a young person. So it's like if there is an old person involved, maybe it was just that he had one of the girls, he was holding one of the girls, and you know, it was Libby's shoe that was found in the mud. She's stronger than Abby, so maybe the younger, maybe less strong perpetrator was trying to hold her, and he just couldn't hold her, you know, and she broke loose, took off running, makes it across the creek, stops across the creek, looks over, and they begin like threatening her or something. You know, for some reason, I see something along those lines happening. You're welcome, Lola. Thanks for hanging out. It's a cold case because there's no arrest after 5 years. I think it's a cold case because they haven't made any arrests, and I don't think any. I think all the evidence that they have is circumstantial. All of it. I don't think they have one piece of solid evidence. Anna Lissette says it's not cold because they are still working on it. KK has yet to be tried in court. Lots of reasons the case is active. Well, his pretrial is set for September. They're not going to charge him with the Delphi murders. So he's out of it. Boom. Kegan's gone. He has nothing to do with the case. Can't tie Tony Kline to it. He's gone. Kegan's not talking. He's not giving us any information on anybody else that might have been using his cell phone device. Boom. Nothing else we can do with it. Yeah, he's not going to get charged with this crime. It's just not going to happen. He may not even be involved. Purdue says, how could it be law enforcement had Libby's phone and did not know within 24 hours of Anthony Shots being a fake profile? Well, you got to think they got to start somewhere, you know? And it's a lot of information. Honestly, that's something I wouldn't expect them to get to for weeks. Anyway, but if it wasn't for the ski mask incident, whether it happened or not, it was reported. It was a real incident. It hasn't been looked at. It hasn't been overlooked, in my opinion. And I still think that theory is extremely interesting. Because if you listen to all of the investigators, retired FBI, some current FBI, they always talk about motive. You know, what's the reason for somebody being in that location? Kind of like Doug Carter always says, why Delphi? Why Abby? Why Libby? And the question is why? Why? Once you have those answers, you know who did the crime. Why was he there? Okay, geocaching might be a reason he was there. Okay, why Abby and Libby? Well, they were actually logging their information on the geocache sheet. Boom. Why Abby? Why Delphi? That answers answers those questions. So it's a good theory. Miss Persevere says, I still think Libby's friend who ran into her and Kelsey the day prior has some knowledge, also connected to the boyfriend who was geocaching with Kelsey. Libby was wearing Kelsey's hoodie from day before. Yeah, Willow. That's a shit show over there. And then she just mimics his live stream and tries to become him. What a joke. Yeah, don't and this really goes to content creators, you guys that just come in and subscribe to these channels and watch them for entertainment value. It really doesn't matter who you watch, honestly, but this is more to the YouTube creators. Like, be careful. These people are evil. They lie. They'll create fake information. They'll create fake accounts. You'll be thinking you're talking to somebody for a month, and then that other person will think they're talking to you for a month, but really you both are talking to a catfish account created by somebody that you thought was your friend or you thought was a male or a female. The best thing you can do is stay the F away from them. They are no good. I've learned the hard way. And if I had any dirt on me, I just want you guys to know, you would all know. They've come after me. They found my addresses. They know my family members. They know all this. But the thing is, if you come after one of my family members, like, they're scarier than the things that I would do. You know what I mean? If you want to go down that road, that's go at your own risk. Like, I'm not worried about that. You're better off dealing with me. But it's just funny. So I feel for them. Like, they're all confused because they think they're all confused. And I'm pretty sure it's people like the Fake King and the Unroyals and those that are all pulling these strings. So that's just a little warning for people out there. Be careful. Don't trust anybody. If you haven't seen them talking to you live on camera, you're most likely not talking to the person that you think you are. Very treacherous. Anna Lisette says, I believe the girls fought back on the south bank of the creek. I think they would more likely have fought a young person than an older person who could have bluffed authority. Yeah, I just have a feeling that Libby would have just zipped. Boom, zip. She probably, when her shoe came off, she was probably like, that's good. I'm going to zip through this water even faster. She was on the swim team. So I don't know how athletic Abby was. So I don't know if she kind of got caught in the water and those footprints that we see going up the creek, maybe that was Libby. Maybe she made it up there and made it a little ways back even, and kind of was up on the bank saying, hey, let her go. And as they're already in the water, so they kind of start walking all the way across towards Libby, and they're like, hey, if you don't get down here, like, this is what we're going to do. And then they do it, and Libby's like, oh my God. And she takes off running. And then, I think it would take a young person to catch her. Now, it's possible there was one perpetrator who inflicted wounds upon Abby and then chased Libby. But it's just to me, the type of crime would involve somebody young because you're running and you're going through the deep water and it's happening quickly. And we know it happened quickly because nobody heard anything. If this was something long, drawn out, arguments and screaming and a fight, this is something that happened very quickly. Because if there was any screaming or yelling, nobody heard it for whatever reason. And if they did hear it, it was so far off, they weren't quite sure what it was that they were hearing, and it just went over their head. That's not a crazy question. It goes with the theory that I've been working on. It's a young teens theory using Kegan as a patsy, or even a corruption theory using Kegan as a patsy. And maybe that's why they let him go free. Maybe they were planning on doing other crimes and pinning them on him. I mean, think about it. If you're law enforcement and you find a tip where a young girl's like, hey, there's some weird guy, he's catfishing me, and then they investigate it and they find out it's Kegan Kline and he's been catfishing all these women. Now, if this is one individual who is law enforcement, who is corrupt in his own right, and says, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and pin a double homicide on this guy, to me, it doesn't seem very hard. I mean, what if he even showed up in the morning and like broke into his house while he was asleep and like logging in and out of phones and you can't underestimate people. If you know anything and you've been looking at true crime and you see how sophisticated some of these criminals are, yeah, a lot of them, most of them, they are not high IQ and, they're kind of dumb luck. That's why they get away for most of the time. But there are some there that are highly sophisticated and extremely terrifying for normal people who just want to live their life and have a family and eventually have grandchildren, have a successful business, make money. Like, these are people that aren't thinking about those things, or they are, and then other times they can't stop thinking about whatever it is that's doing this or causing them to do this. Yeah, good chat. Thanks for participating, Courtney. I appreciate all your input. Some good stuff. Thanks, Penny. Yep. Yeah, and it's hard to say because, I mean, it very well could be, a thinner Kegan on that bridge that we don't know of. But the information that's out there is just not enough to say yes or no. Either way. Kate, I think you have to be logged into your Google account and you have to have like card information registered with Google before you can send anything. Yep. And that's the commonality right there. So that's a theory in itself. But there's nothing. You want to talk about paper thin. But for people to sit here and say that this whole Anthony Shots and Kegan Kline stuff is just rock solid, smoking gun, it's just not. It's thin. It's very thin. Now, if Kegan Kline just comes out and admits it or, snitches, yeah, that's a whole different story. I don't see him doing that, though, especially when they're most likely going to give him a plea deal. And he's probably going to do 30 to 50 years with probably possible parole in 15 or something like that. Yeah, Penny, that is strange. The whole deleting of the phone, and man, it was talked about all the time, how that phone was reset and why it was reset. And they definitely talked about it a lot before all that Anthony Shots information came out. But like I said, it's all paper thin. People reset their phones all the time, especially if you're downloading all these apps and stuff like that, especially like a young kid with a phone, they're going to download every app you can. But yeah, I mean, is it interesting, suspicious? Of course. Purdue, why? Last people to talk to her within 24 hours should be a short list. There's an interview with Becky and Mike Patty on a podcast where they talk about some of the early rumors, and they talk about what's her name? I'm not sure. I think it's an aunt of Libby, and all the kids hang out there. You know, she lets all the young kids show up. She has a bunch of kids of her own that are related to Libby, and it's like a hangout spot. But apparently, even those people they all gave DNA as well, according to Becky Patty. Oops, sorry. Yeah, what's funny is the first person who brought up the geocache stuff was Kelsey. She's the one that first mentioned it. And then the second person that I seen do a follow up and do a whole theory on it was True Crime Jesus, which was extremely compelling. And that allowed me to even dig even deeper into it. And it's very strange. Yeah, talk about a rabbit hole. But once again, it's all just circumstantial evidence. You can't do anything with that. Yeah, you have I think it's 2 to 4 feet, or you can walk on up and down that creek if you wanted to. Public easement. That was just one comment made online, and from there it had perpetual motion. It's like, what guy? And what was his name? What day was he there? Has anybody followed up with him? You know, it's just stuff like that. Yeah, I think it may have led to a lot of busts, but it didn't lead to anything in regards to the Delphi case. No, but a few weeks, or I believe a month down the road, one of Libby's family members or Facebook friends mentioned that they did notice the Anthony Schatz profile, but they couldn't remember the name. They just explained it to a T, you know, young, handsome looking male from Alaska, blah, 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 blah. And then sure enough, a year or two later comes out that Anthony Schatz is a piece of valuable information and a clue to what might have happened. That's a good question, Purdue. And we'll end on this here. Purdue asks, why overkill on one victim? To me, the overkill, it could either mean that this was a crime of passion, personal, a grudge, you know, trying to release all that anger and vengeance, or we have two killers, one who kills in a more sophisticated fashion, targeting arteries and things like that will kill you quickly, you know, the neck, the heart. So if we listen to Erskine's text and we take that, you know, you can take that for whatever it is, for what it's worth. But if we take that as fact, which it's not, but if we do, we know that somebody attacked Abby and it was precise. Few stab wounds in precise locations that would end your life quickly. Okay, well, that could have been a separate killer who did that. Somebody who's maybe militarily trained, maybe medically trained, or maybe just smarter than the average person and says, hey, I need to strike here, here, and here, and then my task is done. And then you have another perpetrator who may be motivated sexually. So we know that Libby's clothes were taken off. Maybe he even tried to sexually assault her. Once he completed the task, you know, it was extremely bloody, didn't need to be bloody. And then when it was over with, he was filled with shame. So he covered the body with leaves. So I think you might have two different people, two different killers who are motivated by two separate things, who have two separate sets of behavior. You know, one was able to secure the victim, wasn't trying to overstimulate. I don't know how you would put it. He wasn't going overboard with it. The other person just happened to be going overboard, being very brutal, but then also showing a lot of shame, afterwards, possibly by covering the bodies or panicking or whatever. So, in regards to why overkill on one victim, I think we have two separate killers with two separate MOs and two separate signatures. Yeah, I wonder that also, Vanessa. A lot of those recent busts for CSAM in Indiana. What do we have? The 911 operator. I think we even had like firefighter. French 6290 says, "Why did they need ropes? Why did searchers call for ropes? The helicopter footage shows the body in the water." Sometimes I wonder if ropes is slang for caution tape. But then again, if they've already found the bodies and they're seeing things in the water, maybe they're going to run some rope right across the top of that evidence. That way, the searchers can hang on to that rope, maybe go underwater, need to grab anything, and they're not losing their position or fighting against the current. Doesn't necessarily mean the bodies were in the water. I think that all comes from Kim Riley when he did the first little presser on the 14th. He said the bodies were found in Deer Creek. But technically, even if they weren't in water where the coordinates are, that is Deer Creek. Like, it actually floods up into that point. So he wasn't wrong. In Deer Creek doesn't mean in water. Yeah, I remember reading a story about a serial killer who was leaving messages all over the place. He was trying to be like the son of Sam and the Zodiac, and he said, "Hey, law enforcement wasn't even picking up on him. They didn't even know about him." So yeah, this guy could be leaving all kinds of subtleties, and then just getting less subtle and less subtle until we can finally pick up on him, which eventually happened with this guy. It went from subtle to just big, bold letters and truck stop bathroom saying, "I killed them, this and this. People you have in custody is a false confession, and I plan to kill again. Wait for my sign or my signal," or something strange like that. I think it was the happy face killer. Yeah, I think they really did mess up with this one. Should have had spotlights out there. Yeah, it's just tough. Hindsight's it's 2020. Yep, rope during the search. But I don't know. I've heard rope referred to as the caution tape or the police tape, you know, that they wrap around the crime scene. Sometimes they call it rope. But then again, searchers who are searching in water also use rope. And that might be why you've seen them in a good unison line like we do in the water. Victoria says there's so much interest in the case they have to stay on it or public would crucify law enforcement. But what does stay on it mean? Are they actively, are they re-questioning witnesses, or are they recreating timelines and profiles? Are they going through the evidence again? Are they doing these things, or are they just sitting there waiting for the tip to come in that they need? I think there's a difference. Yeah, and even if they did know who this person was and they knew the fashion that the girls were killed, I don't know, that'd be pretty scary, you know? I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Let's say you knew the killer and he lived right up the street from you and you have children. Yeah, what's motivating this killer? Um, the only clues we really have are from the Ron Logan affidavit. No sign of a struggle, no sign of a fight, lots of blood and a sharp weapon. All that to me says personal. A hitman's not going to do that. Somebody hired for a hit's not going to do that. So either it's personal, um, it's ritualistic, something along those lines, or revenge. Trying to prove a point. All right, guys, we're going to start winding down. We're hitting that hour and a half mark. I think that's plenty of time. Like I said, please leave anything in the comments in regards to today's topic. I think it's important that we start having this conversation because you got people who are getting complacent. They're not tipping in. They're not caring as much. The caring, it's not something that we rent or we check out for a while. So let's keep this thing going. Like you said, the public will put pressure on law enforcement, and that's what I think needs to happen. But leave some comments. Let me know what you think. So if you're watching this as a replay, drop a comment. Let me know why you think it is or is not a cold case. During the poll, we had about 200 votes, and 63% of you out there who commented or took part in the poll said, yes, this is a cold case. And I also believe that it has gone cold. And I don't expect anything in September regards to Kegan Kline. And I just didn't want you guys to be disappointed. Oh, thank you so much, Redfoot. I appreciate it. Yeah, he's not. Jim says, I don't think KK will get as much time as people think for the CP shit. Nope. I think he's going to take a plea. He'll most likely serve maybe 20 years, and that'll also include time served. It'd be something more like that. And then he'll have to come out as a sex offender and all that good stuff, and then he'll probably do it again. Yep, Toy, I agree. Yeah, maybe he convinced her, and then she convinced her, Libby convinced her aunt to do it. So maybe after she sent photos and he sent photos to her, he's like, look, well, now you got to go ahead and delete that. So maybe he was planning this for over a week, which does, coincide with a lot of evidence. And we don't know if it's evidence, really, just because it's said, in a police interview. But on Kegan's main phone from, I believe, February 10th all the way to February 16th. It was the only phone that was actually scrubbed clean from that point in between those dates. But even if he's involved, he's not going to talk, and his DNA is not a match, and they haven't charged him with it. So, do you know how old friend one's brother is? No. I know friend one is in his late 30s, though. 33, 34. Or his early 30s, sorry. Evansville? You mean Evansdale? Yeah, Evansdale, very possible. Yes. Flora could have been maybe a first attempt. Delphi could have been him getting more sophisticated. But Evansdale, I'm not sure. Because if Flora and Delphi are connected in some way, which I don't think that they are, and Evansdale, to me, Evansdale and Delphi are more sophisticated crimes than I would say an arson, you know. There's more moving parts. Yeah, but it wasn't flooded. Yeah, that's very possible. All right, guys. Sorry I couldn't catch up to all of the chat. I'll try to slow it down a little bit more next time. Looks like I missed quite a bit. But we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep coming back, and we're going to keep talking about it. But like I said, please leave me your input in the comment section. Leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and go subscribe to my channel. We're going to do this all the time. But we're going to talk a lot about the case possibly going cold. So leave me all the input you can. And then the next time we have this conversation, hopefully we'll have something to follow up with it, or more insight, or we can go a little bit deeper into the topic. So on that note, you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Most likely see you on Monday, and members on Tuesday. Take care.